Good morning, Darren. How's it going?
Good, Carl. Good morning to you.
Excellent. Great to have you on the Provider podcast. It's the first one we're doing for this season. We've hit winter again. Time for some wet weather yarns. She's a little bit rainy and windy out there today.
Yeah, it's not very nice, is it? We've got a week of bad weather, but I managed to sneak in a dive last Saturday, so that was good before this weather.
Yeah. Happy days. Happy days. It's one of the things I love about New Zealand is she's always changing. The sea's never the same. Garden's never the same. Summer you flat tack on the water all the time, but you get to do a bit of this stuff and have a few yarns over winter. So I'm very, I feel very fortunate to have you on, Darren. You're the pioneer, really, of spearfishing in a commercial sense. And a retail level, especially in New Zealand. 6 times world champ. 6 times New Zealand champ. Represented New Zealand overseas. What goes into being a New Zealand champ?
I guess you got to have a real drive for it. I mean, I started the sport when I was very, very young. My dad was one of these guys that just throws you in at the deep end, and I had to learn the hard way, I suppose. There was no internet, no learning from other guys. It was just like, you jump in here and we'll see you later on. And I was about 5 years old. I followed him around and things, but not quite like it is now. But I'm anything I do, I'm pretty driven to do it and do it well if I can. And spearfishing was one of those things I wanted to do. Dad was New Zealand spearfishing champ in 1971 at Stewart Island, I think it was. Yep. And I sort of wanted to follow in his footsteps and give it a shot. So one of the things I found I had to do was do your homework, like anything in business or whatever you do in your life. The thing about spearfishing was I kept myself fit and I scouted lots. So before an event, I'd be in the area sometimes 2 or 3 weeks before, just diving every day up and down and finding where every fish lived and understanding what fish did in that area each day with the tide.
Yep. Where are some of the spots that you competed for the I take it that was the Nationals, was it, where you earned your...
Yeah, so look, I've competed all over New Zealand. Predominantly, most of the competitions are north of Tauranga on the east coast. But we have had a Nationals at Stewart Island. I've competed there, and I've done lots of guiding work through all those sort of places as well. So there's not much in New Zealand good diving areas that I haven't dived, to be honest. I've dived it all, but I guess if I was looking for a favourite spot that I've dived the Nationals in, it would probably be somewhere like the Hen and Chicks or the Mocha Hen House, Great Barrier. Those for me are the premium spots in New Zealand.
Yeah, awesome. And I want to say thanks for coming and saying hi on the stand at the boat show. It's the first time we've sort of had a proper yak, and we caught up in Tairua when you were through the other day. Thank you very much for sort of reaching out and having a yarn, and that's where this podcast has come from. Turns out we've got a... I think as I said
before we go any further, you're a bit of a legend in yourself, and I'm not sure you know that. So, as I said to you, good people are drawn to good people, and I think you do great work. So that's why I thought I'd come and say good day.
Awesome. No, cheers. Thanks heaps, Darren. No, that means a lot to have someone of your stature in the industry reaching out. Turns out we've got 2 bloody good mates in common from both of our time spent in Vanuatu. I lived there for a while, and you've done lots of riding over there. So Pete Phillips and Anthony Honeybone. So Pete still lives there. Ants is back in Christchurch, and I do a lot of fishing with him. But I remember sitting here in Tairua. I'd come back from Vanuatu, and I've been back here, I don't know, 6 months to a year or something. And I was off to work one morning, checked my emails, and there's an email from Anthony saying, I've only got 2 weeks to go, but I've eclipsed anything I've ever done in Vanuatu. I've shot a 250 kilo blue marlin, and I looked at the time he sent it. It was like 4 o'clock in the morning, and I just went, "Oh, you've had a few beers. You're just spinning me a yarn." I said, "Send me a photo," and 5 minutes later, there's a photo of him next to a 250 kilo marlin that you were a part of the capture. Tell us a little bit about that.
For years, as you say, I guided into Vanuatu, and I love going and hanging out with Pete, and Anthony was our skipper a number of times. And I sold out of my then dive business, and I went to Vanuatu on a holiday and looked to go and live there and things like that. And Anthony said to me, hey, how about I organise a boat and we go out and have a dive at the Fad? I've never really done anything there and I'd like to shoot a pelagic fish before I leave Vanuatu. I was moving back to New Zealand. And so we put a trip together, and it was with the famous Dr. Harry, who got the soccer team out of that cave in the Philippines or Thailand or wherever it was. Dr. Harry was our boatman for the day. And we went out to the Fad and we jumped in, and Anthony speared a mahi-mahi straight off. So he achieved what he wanted to go there for. And I had a bit of a burley going, and there was some small yellowfin buzzing around. So I shot one of them. And as I tried to grab this yellowfin on my spear, a huge blue marlin came rocketing up and tried to grab the yellowfin off me, which in itself just blew me away. I've never had a marlin. I've had plenty of sharks take fish off me, but not a marlin. And it was really intent on getting that yellowfin. And I'd forgotten about Anthony. He was off to my side. The next minute, the spear sailed past my right shoulder and thunk straight into this huge blue marlin. It's like, whoa, what have you done? Anyway, he goes to me, he's getting dragged away from me. He's going, here, you land it. I said, mate, I reckon that's a world record. You're going to have to land this. I'll talk you through it. I'd been around a few marlin being speared and whatnot in years gone by. So, look, I'll give it to Anthony, man. There's very few guys could have done what he did, especially with the little amount of experience he had as a diver fighting a big fish. And he earned that fish for about an hour. That thing beat him up, and he won the battle and landed. It was a world record blue marlin for a while.
Awesome! What an amazing capture! And not many newbies would have been able to do that. He's a
I don't think so.
Resilient sort of a bugger, isn't he?
Very resilient, very fit and strong, and got a good mind on him. Good, clear mind. You know. Yeah. You hang out with a lot of people that get into dodgy situations and they don't know how to deal with them. They can't clear everything else out of their mind and go, this is how I'm going to survive this and this is how I'm going to make this happen. Anthony's obviously one of those guys that can. Very, 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 very clever guy, very, very good competitor, good, strong sportsman.
And the other character we're talking about, Pete, he's definitely someone.
Pete's a legend.
Pete's definitely someone I'll credit with getting me into the game I am now. It's something I'd always wanted to do, but I distinctly remember sitting down with Pete while I was in Vanuatu and explaining, like, that's a path I wanted to go down sometime in the future, but I probably, once I got back to New Zealand, go back into corporate land and save some pennies. And
yeah,
I'd probably, it might take me 10 years to get into it or something, and I'll do it later on in life. And he looked me in the eye and he said, you know the problem with C words like you, Carl?
Yeah.
He said, yeah, you fucking think too much. And you could be right, Pete. And that just rattled around in my head once I got back to New Zealand. And it's probably 4 months later, I bought a place on the Coromandel and I was going into it. So, definitely.
I could just hear Pete saying it. And Pete's not saying that it's something he's made up. Pete's come from a pretty colourful background, but he's one of the legends in life as far as I'm concerned. Great guy, great operator, good man, just great guy.
Yeah. Feel for those guys missing out on the tourism dollar at the moment. Yeah, but once borders open up, can't wait to get back there. And for those of you that don't know, Pete runs a business fishing and diving in Vanuatu. Highly
recommend him if you're wanting to go fishing or diving in Vanuatu.
Yeah, so Darren, you're a Coromandel local, aren't you? You grew up in Whirianga. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so at 10 years old, my dad got I was 10, but Dad got the position of running one of the then fish factories in Whirianga, and we moved from Auckland down there. So I call Whirianga home. That's where I grew up. I did my main part of my growing, I believe. And Dad ended up buying into the fish factories and running them. And I then left to go to work in Auckland at the age of about 17, 18 maybe, for the then biggest wholesaler of dive gear, skiing gear and hunting gear called Alan G. Mitchell Sports.
Okay.
I spent all my youth, as I call it, in Whirianga and that's where I learnt my trade as a spearfisherman. I learned how to shoot fish there.
Yeah. What's your favourite little neck of the woods down Whiri way? For getting
I think I have to go back to when I lived there, because so much has changed there. I mean, fish numbers, fish stocks there are just depleted compared to what they used to be. But in the old days, diving the inside of Great Mercury on a weed edge there on a clear day was pretty hard to beat. Lots of John Dory, lots of terraki, lots of boarfish, lots of kingfish. In those days, we didn't see a lot of snapper there. The snapper population was down, whereas I think it's come back a bit, but everything else is pretty depleted there now. So when I go back, I'm a bit disappointed, but, you know, around Red Mercury is pretty good, but that means you're going further out, which you tend to have to do sometimes these days. So yeah, probably Great Mercury when I live there.
Yeah. So that on that outgoing tide, when it pushes out of the Gulf down that western side of Great Mercury, and opposite on the southern edge is pretty special as well, isn't it? With all those white beaches and pretty stunning part of the world.
Yeah, it's a beautiful area. And in those days, we never had shark issues like we have now, you know. So it's learned behaviour, I guess, that they've all turned up and start bothering us a bit. But at Great Mercury and places like that are pretty sharky now. I mean, we carry on, we still dive with them, and, you know, really they're not an issue. They're eating your fish. But as a young fella, you never even thought about a shark. You had it all to yourself, and there was so many fish there. It was just awesome.
Yeah. With spearfishing, you've essentially got two sports, haven't you? You got spearfishing and you've got free diving. Do you see them as two sports or one and the same, or is that a silly question?
Two sports. Two sports.
Yep.
I liken it to rally driving and Formula One. They're driving a car fast, but they're very different skills are required for both.
Yeah.
Look, I don't know much about the freediving world, and I don't want to upset anybody by saying the wrong thing, but my take on it is in freediving, you train and you become an amazing athlete, and you train and train and train, and you might do 1 or 2 dives in a day when you go to try and break your record or do whatever. We go out and we dive in very rough conditions. You swim big distances, and you might not be doing the 100-meter dives, but you've got to consistently dive to 30, 35. Some of the top guys diving 40, 45 meters these days, and do that for 5 or 6 hours continuously. Yeah. So it's quite different, I think, in how you prepare yourself. That's my take on it.
Yep. So we've probably got a range of people listening or watching in. Anywhere from fishermen who might have done a little bit of snorkeling for some crayfish or paua, right through to your really keen spearo. Just tell us a little bit about your typical day out there. What are you doing? What are you? How are you stalking the fish, etc.?
So for me these days, I generally go out and target a snapper. They're the hardest thing to shoot that we shoot. They require, it's not hard. It's actually very easy because you're looking for shallow, calm water and you're snooping along and hunting them. But yeah, I go out in the day and try and shoot 3 or 4 snapper or something like that, grab a crayfish for tea. I mean, I'm a big fan of blue mau. I love smoked blue mau. I love a kingfish. If a kingfish swims by, I'll shoot a kingfish. I don't always. I'd probably let more go than I target, but yeah, every now and then I shoot one. But yeah, they're pretty relaxing days. I mean, I have just competed in a competition, and that's a whole different scenario. You're pushing yourself for 6 hours in a day, and you're swimming long distances. You're in tide. You're out in deep spots. You might not be on a general day's diving, but yeah, you can sort of do whatever you want when it comes to spearfishing. You can go and target a butterfish in really nice, shallow, calm water, away from any dangers, and it's just as enjoyable. So it's up to the individual, I think, what they target at the end, and probably don't get carried away too much with the hero fish for a start. If you're starting out, just go for the basics and learn to identify your fish too. So you're not shooting. The one thing we pride ourselves with spearfishing, there's not a lot of bycatch. Yeah, there are a lot of fish there that you probably shouldn't be shooting. A lot of them, a lot of fish we see diving that don't take a line aren't that good to eat. So you don't want to be targeting those, by a wrong identification of them. So it's quite interesting. You take new divers out and they say, I saw a brown fish with pink spots and it had a yellow tail. What was that? And it's like the amount of times I hear fish descriptions that I go, mate, I've got no idea what you've seen, but obviously what you see and what I see and the description's a bit different. So pick up a chart or have a look at some videos and see what guys are getting would be my advice.
Yeah. And so what is it that you love about the sport?
I guess as spearfishermen, we're all individuals, and time away by yourself. I mean, it's great for your mental health. It's good fitness. I I really enjoy the thrill of the chase. And I mean, for me, going spearfishing or going diving, you just never know what's going to crop up, what you're going to see. And it can be the silliest little thing that really blows you away. It might be a porcupine fish, a puffer fish. It could be a giant kingfish. It could be a big shark. It could be a whale. It could be anything. Yeah. There's something to really give you a buzz every day. I mean, I'm sitting on the edge of a cliff here in the Auckland's Hauraki Gulf. I'm looking out to sea at the moment. And I dive a lot here from home in dirty, dirty water, and guys think I'm nuts. But I love the challenge of coming home with a snapper or a John Dory or something off my deck here where I live, right? And I'm not in downtown Auckland, but I'm in one of the North Shore bays here, Tor Bay. And every time I go out, I get quality fish. And I love that challenge.
You can't beat going out and without using too much petrol and just on your back doorstep going and getting it, can you?
No. It's funny because I come in on the beach, and it happens reasonably often. I come on the beach and I've had people sort of snicker at me going, well, what did you see out there? And I tow these little float boats that I designed, and I pull the cover back, and I had a guy down there, second to last time I went down, and I shot about a 4 kilo and about a 1 kilo snapper just off the beach under the first boat moored in the middle of the beach at about 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning. And a guy was lying there on a towel with his girlfriend, and he went, oh, mate, you're wasting your time where you went there. He said, you needed to go out further where all the schoolfish were. And I saw the schoolfish. They were out past me. But the water was so dirty, I had about, I reckon, 0.5 metre to 1 metre's viz, but I managed these 2 snapper in it. I pulled the cover back and I said, oh, mate, I got to feed. Well, he nearly choked. I couldn't believe what he was saying. He said, but you're only at that boat right there. And I said, that's right, mate. Fish your feet. There was nobody else fishing or diving there. I had it all to myself. I just had people on paddle boards and things all around me, but the fish were there. You just got to work out how to extract them.
And the more time you spend on the water, like you say, you see some crazy things. One of the things that I always will stick out in my mind, going for a little bit of a dive while I was living in Melbourne for 2.5 years, and the Melbourne itself is pretty ordinary in terms of the marine environment, but you get out the edges of Port Phillip Bay, and it is pretty. There's some pretty stunning life in the current out near the heads of Port Phillip Bay, and we're mooching along a weed line one day, myself and a mate, and came across. You've probably seen spider crabs before, like the ones you get in Australia, and about that high off the bottom with the big leaf. Came across probably 2,000 of those, all having a mass orgy on the bottom.
Wow.
It was like something out of National Geographic.
Yeah.
After that, that was a good, I don't know, probably over 20 years ago, and before digital cameras and stuff. But I just went straight out and bought a camera. I was like, if I ever see anything like that again, I've got to get photos. People will never believe me.
No, that's right. And then the day of the GoPro, it makes it easy now to record all that sort of stuff. They're easy to carry and have on you without being too obtrusive.
So tell us a little bit about business life, Darren. You started New Zealand's first dedicated spearfishing shop quite a while back.
I did.
Now. What led you into
back
that?
in I started out of my garage at home in 1996 and opened my first store in about 1998 in New Zealand. And I remember I first started bringing spearfishing gear in, and I approached a few of the dive stores, and they said, no, mate, you're wasting your time. Spearfishing gear doesn't sell. So I started a spearfishing store in Albany, and I bought a building there and moved from my home to there and got it going. And next minute, spearfishing took off in New Zealand. I mean, I got right behind it, promoted it, and did stuff with different TV personalities and things like that, and sort of created a brand and built it up. But I burnt out many years ago, and I got quite sick. I hardly ever slept, and I just went for it. I went hard. I drove that business, and I had a couple of other businesses on the go, and I was extremely successful in business. I was going very well. And at the same time, my wife and I were having children, and we were building houses and doing houses up, and sleep and having a break wasn't something that I thought I needed. And then one day my body said to me, you know what, you do, and threw all sorts of stuff at me. So over a period of time, I sold out of my businesses, and one of them was my spearfishing business, and took 3 years off and went and ran businesses for mates. that I could see were in a similar state as what I was, that needed some time out and things like that. And sort of learned a lot from running other guys' businesses. I sort of could see the wood for the trees, I suppose. That's the saying. And learned a lot more, and then tried to buy my old business back. That never was successful. It went to somebody else. So my wife and I started another one. And this time we decided to do things a bit differently. Back then I was selling everybody else's brand, and people take agencies off you and you build a brand up, and big scuba companies would come and pull the rug out from underneath you because they had more money or told a better story than you did. Yeah. So I decided to start my own brand, and that's where Wettie came from. And a very good mate of mine is Jeff Ross, the founder of 42 Below, a very successful guy in New Zealand. And I said to Jeff, we're actually in Vanuatu with Pete. Yeah. And Jeff and I were having a glass of wine one night, and I said, I need to start a new dive business. I've started a new dive business and I need a brand name. And Jeff, just like that, went, I've always liked the name Wettie. And I said, well, I think it's a silly name. And so, but I went to bed that night and I couldn't get it off my mind. It just kept rolling around in my head. So I thought, woke up in the morning and said, Jeff, I think I'm going to use Wettie. And he said, yeah, go for it. Yeah, go for it. So I did. And Wettie was born, and my daughter was working for another company selling clothing. And she decided she wanted to come and work for me. And that was 16 years ago, and not a few years later, my son left school, and after a short stint working for somebody else, he came to work for me, my middle boy. And now Griff, my youngest son, has now been with us for 3 years. So there's my wife and my 3 children and Wettie, and we've got another 7 staff. There's 12 of us all together, and we've created Wettie, and I dare say probably the biggest dive brand in New Zealand now. It's going very, very well. Some of our suppliers offshore can't believe how much business we do out of New Zealand. And I've had offers to go to America, and some of the big companies set me up there and set our brand up there and get going. But I'm pretty happy living in New Zealand. We live in the best place in the world. And I mean, lots of people say that, but I think a lot will agree with me, especially after this last year. We're in a pretty good corner of the world here. And we've got lots of good stuff at our fingertips. And you can create a business like I have, doing what you like doing. I mean, everybody, you know, that's into diving or fishing, you know, a lot of guys go, well, I might buy a dive business or buy a dive shop or buy a charter operating business or start something up. You do have to work in these things. And that's what some guys forget. You actually probably have to work harder in these sort of businesses than some others, because your captive audience, people you can sell gear to or take diving or fishing, is a bit smaller. And on those days when you want to be out doing it, you've actually got to be pushing it and working it and driving it. So we've done that. We've been very successful, and we've got big plans for the future. We've got a lot on the go at the moment. We've just bought a bigger building to the one we're in, and we're splitting our business in half and growing our warehousing and online store and wholesale side. We've got lots on the go. So I'm fortunate to have my kids in the business, and obviously you have some days when there's a bit of work to be done in the old family scene. And, you know, sometimes as a dad, I've got to take a backward seat a little bit and go, okay, the kids tell me I'm wrong and this is not right. I've been around a lot of very successful businesses and a lot of very bad businesses in another area that I used to work in. So I've learned a lot that they haven't seen. So I'm letting them find their way a little bit, but it does take a bit of juggling, but it's very rewarding to see them doing well in business and understanding it. Jackson, my son's just designed a handle for a spear gun. We now make a fully New Zealand made spear gun, which is in itself is a bit of a achievement, because it's a huge investment in tooling and things like that. And it's taken off, and it's going really well. Quality wise, we've gone for the very best quality you can turn out, which is people can see that. And yeah, I'm pretty proud of my kids and what they've achieved, and I'm very proud of my wife. She's a big part of what we do. She's actually the silent sort of hero in the background that does the hard yards and keeps us all together. And yeah, it's very rewarding. It does have its challenges, but it's very rewarding at the end of the day.
Yeah, that must be amazing, having your family in the business, and you sort of can't trust anyone like you can your family, can you?
Well, that's right. And you know, I've looked at different ways of how we build it. One of the things that I was having to do was get on a plane and go to China and design wetsuits in China. You know, you'd get there and I'd go, right, I've got an idea for a wetsuit and I want you to make it. And they go, oh, have you got a sample? It's like, no, I haven't got a sample. So I went and bought a wetsuit manufacturer in New Zealand that was trying to sell. He'd been trying to sell for a long time. Bought him, took that over. So we've now got that manufacturing plant on hand, like it's in our building where we are. We alter and repair wetsuits, and we do the odd custom made suit. But Jackson and I and my daughter, if it's a woman's suit, we sit down and we design a suit with our little guy that we've got in the business, and he's an incredible guy. He can make us a pattern, and Jackson and myself and my daughter will wear the suit for 6 months, and if we like it, we then make the pattern for every size, and we make another sample and we send it off to the various factories we have aligned ourselves with offshore. We've got them in China and Taiwan. Now, I've spent a lot of time in these factories, and man, they are really good. I mean, you do see the sweatshop thing, but we've aligned ourselves with some really good factories. I mean, you can eat off the floor. They're that clean. They're beautiful factories. And my wetsuit designer that works for me, he said to me, Darren, I can't mass produce a suit as good as what these guys are doing. He said the quality is exceptional. And we've done things like we get rubber from Japan, from big factories there that is just top end. So we do a bit of mixing and matching and getting the right product. And yeah, I've sort of really thought it out how to run a really good business in New Zealand. It's a bit different from run of the mill stuff, and can offer just that bit more service, but at the same time, it takes a lot of work. So I've got to every now and then check myself a little bit and go, hey, remember when you burnt out once before? These are the signs, and you take a backward step for a little bit. And
that's where
smell the roses.
That's where I was going to go next. Is like I've looked through your catalogue. It's pretty comprehensive. You've got lots of wetsuit lines, spear guns, fins, masks. You've got a lot of product lines there, and a lot that your own product lines. With that must come a whole lot of complexity and stress. How do you manage that?
My wife's good at helping me with that, I must say. You know, every now and then she'll pull me up. And I've got one of the things I learned earlier on in life is surround yourself with really good people. If you're not compatible with somebody, don't try and be compatible with them. Move them on, get them out of your life. They're probably good people in their own right, but if they're not, if the two of you can't work together, don't bust your ass trying to be their friend or trying to make it work. It just doesn't work. Find good, compatible people and work closely with them. And it's amazing when you get those people around you, how much more can be achieved that you don't have to bust your ass or spend hours lying awake at night worrying about and things like that. If you've got good people around you, can do the job. And sometimes, you know, one thing I learned, I used to have a guy that used to sell for me, and he used to frustrate the hell out of me because he didn't sell the way I sold. He was very quiet and whatnot. But then I'd sit down at the end of the month and I'd work out he sold just as much as I have. Yeah. He had his own technique, his own way of doing it. So you learn to not beat yourself up about some of those things. But it's really important to take some time out every day for yourself. So for me, I get up in the morning, a bit of a ritual. I have a drink of water. I have a big glass of water. It's the first thing I do every morning. And then I take the dog for a walk. 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm down the beach with the dog. It's a bit of a ritual. I come home and I have a cup of coffee with my wife and chill for a bit and watch the news. Whereas before, you know, I'd be gone out the door, running on half a battery, but you know, I can do it. I can push myself through it. You can do so much more and achieve so much more if you're a little bit rested. So that means just having to let a few things go every now and then and not getting done what you thought needed to be done that day. Let it go and do it tomorrow. I don't know about you, Carl, but I find at the end of some days, I can't deal with some really difficult things that might be in front of you work-wise or whatever they might be. I've learned to go, put it off till tomorrow. And you get out of bed, you've had a reasonable sleep, and that thing that seemed really difficult yesterday afternoon, the next morning is really easy. You fix that problem or you come up with a solution and it's done. So it's really important you start to notice little things like that about how you can deal with stuff, how you can react to stuff. and listen to what your body's telling you. How are you feeling? You know, you got that fuzzy feeling going on in your mind. Is your mind like a washing machine? You know, you're standing looking at a washing machine or a dryer going round and round and round and round, and I can't come up with a solution, or I can't make a decision. If it is, back off, find something else like some nice music or something like that. I mean, I've got one of those massage chairs. My kids bought it for me. I love it, man. That is the go-to thing when you want to wind down for a minute. 15 minutes in that, oh, I feel like a new man when I get out of that. It's incredible what that does. Yeah. And I find myself going to sleep in it. And I mean, that thing's beating you up, you know, down your spine and things like that. But the odd time I go to sleep and it's just like, wow, that's just such a good thing, you know. So find what works for you. And, you know, the other thing I've learned is the world keeps spinning without you and things keep happening without you. So take a break and then come back a bit fresher.
100%. I can definitely relate to that feeling at the tail end of the day. I used to be someone that I'd do back-to-back trips on the water. I think one of my longest stretches was 21 days, 27 days straight or something like that. Just up at 5, back cleaned up by 6 p.m. But then I'd sit down in front of a computer and do all my bookings. And I used to be able to push through till midnight, 2 o'clock, putting together a newsletter, sending that out. And I used to be quite an evening person. I get a lot of work done in the evenings. These days, past 5 p.m., especially past dinner time, I'm of no use. I'm usually tucked up in bed by 8:30, 9 o'clock. And I've just learned that as I get older, that's how my body functions. But like you say, if I go to write a little article or something like that, not so good in the evenings anymore, but on a good night's sleep, I wake up 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'm so productive. It's funny. So I leave all my creative type work to the morning, when I find I do have a very clear head and I'm very creative and productive, and then try and do more of my physical stuff, like out in the garden or working on the boat or building or anything like that, more sort of midday through the afternoon. And then like you say, rest, get some good quality rest in the evenings, and just
imagine if we knew all this stuff when we were young.
Yeah.
Would have been dangerous.
So you've obviously followed your passion being spearfishing. There might be people listening or watching that want to follow their passion. And it might not be fishing or diving. It could be surfing. It could be music. It could be painting. What advice would you have to anyone who wants to follow their dreams and their passion? There's a lot of people that say don't mix your hobbies with your work. Do you agree with that?
No, I don't. I think we only live once. And I was driving down a road one day heading towards the motorway with my middle boy in the car, and there was a bus sitting in the traffic on the freeway above us. And all the people had a set of headphones on and were looking down at their lap or at their phones or whatever, sitting in the traffic going to work every day. And I said to my son, do you want to do that for the rest of your life? Because that's what you do. I think you spend more time lying on a bed at night or going to work than you do doing anything else. Do you really want to be doing something that you don't enjoy for most of your life and then die? It's like, not for me. But the one thing that you should be very cautious of, if you're going into business and you're chasing the money, never chase the money. Go into business for your passion and chase the people, and do right by people in business. You know, every business deal should be a win-win. You don't want a win for you and a loss for them, or a loss for them. A loss for you and a win for them, because somebody always gets brassed off. If you can go into every business decision trying to get a win-win on both sides, chase the people, don't chase the money, and just do it right and come up with good stuff. Doesn't matter what it is, whether it's music or whatever. You'll win. You'll win over and above. I've seen it for years. I mean, part of what I didn't talk about, when I went to work for L&G Mitchell Sports, my uncle gave me an opportunity to get into his furniture business. So I went from selling the best dive gear in New Zealand at 19 years old to selling cushions. My uncle was in the furniture industry, and he sold for 7 different furniture companies as an agent. And he gave me the opportunity to do that. So I left and I went into that. And that was my other business I had going when I started my dive business. I sold for 6 furniture companies, but I had to start with one, and that was selling cushions or pillows for your couch. So you can imagine what my friends thought when I left this company. I had a company car at 19. I was selling, as I say, the best dive brands, hunting and skiing, everything, fishing, the whole lot. And my passion was to do well and do right by the guys that were manufacturing. And I found great manufacturers, and I had great product. And every retailer knew that I'd be in their store every 6 weeks. Didn't matter where they were in the North Island, I was in their store. And I was very successful at it, extremely successful. I did really well. But I didn't really have the passion for furniture as much. So that's hence why I started a dive business. And then it grew from there. But yeah, you can do it, eh? You just got to have a passion for stuff. Just live, eat, sleep, and breathe it, but take some time out from it. That's what I didn't do. I didn't take time away. Take some time out from it.
100%. 100%. We've talked in a lot of ways about various aspects of wellbeing, and I think an important part of your own wellbeing is actually being of service to others. And when we're talking in Taira the other day, you mentioned quite a few things you do to help out youth and young males. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I think through your life, you all meet somebody that helps you somewhere. And it might be somebody you've met for half an hour and you learn something from them. As I say, I did really well in business, and I've got a great wife, great family, and things like that. When I took some time out, I went to a function at my son's school, and they were looking for mentors to mentor young guys at the school that were struggling with life and maybe didn't have the support around them that they needed or the understanding. Thought, right, I want to do something for my community. So I put my hand up. That was 16 years ago, and I'm still doing it. And I get as much out of it as what I'm hoping the boys get out of it from me. And, you know, for an hour once a week or once every 2 weeks, the results that I've seen with some of these young men by just you being there, not as a policeman, not as a teacher, not as a parent, but just somebody they can spin a yarn with, can tell you something that they test you sometimes. I mean, some of the stuff I've been told makes your skin crawl a little bit sometimes, and I've got to decide what I do with that information and whether I can deal with it myself and help them out. But I think I told you, Carl, about, I mean, I've got lots of stories, but one story that comes to mind is a young guy knocking on my door late one winter's night. It was about 8, 9 o'clock at night, pitch black, raining outside. Hadn't seen him for about 5 years. And he said, Darren, I bought a car. I bought my first car, and I did everything you and I talked about. Because one thing I bring through into my mentoring of these young guys is a bit of an entrepreneurial side. And I sort of teach to them about money and about life. And this kid said, I did everything you said to do, and I'm now second in charge at this particular retail business, and I bought my first car, and I wanted you to be the first guy that sees it. And I mean, it cut me up, to be honest. It was, and it does a little bit now, you know, when I talk about it. It was just one of those experiences. And I hark back to another young guy that I mentored, and he couldn't get anywhere at school. The teachers didn't really gel with him. He was always in trouble, and they wanted him out of the school. And I was sitting with him one day, and he seemed to be preoccupied, and he had a bag by his feet. And he said to me, Darren, if I show you something, can I have your trust that you won't tell on me? And I said, mate, it depends on where it is. You know, I'm thinking a bag of pea might be about to be pulled out or something. I said, mate, I'll do my best, but show me what it is. So he pulled out a hat, a flat peak hat that these young guys wear, and they wear sort of half sideways, you know, and things. And he goes, I found these online in China, and I'm bringing them in, and I'm landing them for $8, and I'm selling them for $35 at school, and I can't get enough of them. And he says, if I get found out, I get expelled from school. It's like, mate, I'm not going to tell on you. I want to invest in you. I mean, that kid's eyes just lit up. And next minute he had shoes. He was showing me shoes, you know. And I thought, you know what? Just by me believing in him and going, hey, mate, it's all right to do that. I believe that kid went on to be a success. I don't know. I haven't seen him since. But school started to become a better place for him because I said to him, okay, to carry this business on, mate, you need to know what 2 + 2 is, you know, if you can see what I mean. You need to learn the basics at school to do better in your business. So there's all sorts of stories like that, as I say, I get as much out of it as I think the boys do. And I haven't seen really that many bad results at the end of it. I've managed to keep all these boys in school when the board's been trying to kick them out. I mean, I'm talking about boys that have got no family, you know, like some of them live with their mums, some of them live with aunties because mum's dead from a drug overdose and dad's beaten her up and stabbed somebody else and he's in hospital, in prison. And these are the sort of boys that I've come across. And I find it very good for me and my relationship with my kids too when I spend some time with these boys. So I think anybody out there, if you can give somebody 5 minutes, even if it's sitting on a bench in a park talking to a stranger, you never know what you can say to them that'll make a massive difference in their life and maybe in yours too.
You never know the ripple effect of how they're going to help other people as well down the track.
That's right. Right. Yeah.
So back to spearfishing, Darren. What's the catch that you think you'll remember the most when you're sort of 80 years old?
I guess for me, probably the most excited I've ever been, and I've been excited a lot of times in the water, was when I shot my first yellowfin off Whakatane. I shot a 48-kilo yellowfin, which is still the New Zealand record. And being in those meatballs off Whakatane in the old days when there used to be a lot of yellowfin around, it just blows your mind. It just blows your mind, those things exploding and eating anchovies all around you, and to shoot one and to land it, you know. And I went on to shoot more. It's not the biggest one. I've shot them up to 60 kilos in Vanuatu with Pete and Anthony. But yeah, that 48-kilo yellowfin. I mean, I shot the New Zealand record snapper. I think I shot the first snapper ever over the 30-pound mark, or 14 kilos as it was. And that was remarkable. But I've shot lots of big snapper and lots of snapper, but that yellowfin would have to be it for me. And I've shot marlin, you know, I've shot striped marlin up to 130 odd kilos and things like that. And I've shot a big black marlin, which unfortunately my gear let me down. I lost that. And, you know, you've got that in your mind, but the yellowfin
that got away, eh?
Unfortunately, it was a massive thing. 300 odd kilos, I estimate. And wow. My gear failed me. Yeah, it was gear that I'd bought years ago out of South Africa, and it failed me, unfortunately.
Was that in New Zealand?
Yes, it was up in the Ruahine Shoal off the back of Stevenson's Island. Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, massive fish. Yeah.
And did you go out knowing it was lurking around there?
No, I was there with Graham Sinclair filming one of his TV shows and diving on the top of the reef, and everything was really cagey. And I thought, oh, there's a big shark here. And I was coming up off the reef, and out of the gloom below me, this massive marlin just came rocketing straight at me and turned side on in front of me. And I shot him and I spined him, and he just wiggled all the way to the surface right beside me. I thought I had him. Yeah. And it's a fish, you've caught plenty of big fish, you know how powerful they are. Well, this thing, even with a broken spine, just the way it wiggled was enough to tear the flopper off my spear as it just sort of wiggled away from me. Yeah. And I was almost felt sick at losing such a magnificent fish like that. I don't like, you know, wounding fish, and to lose it like that. I mean, everything gets eaten in the ocean, I suppose. So something would have eaten it, but it was dead. It was going to die. Yeah. But hard sight to forget. Yeah.
And you've been down chasing the bluefin off the west coast of the South Island.
Yeah, so I was probably one of the first to jump in the water down behind the big Russian trawlers and New Zealand factory ships and things and film those big bluefin. And I did probably 6 to 8 trips down there jumping in with them, but I never wanted to spear one because I saw a few of those bluefin get wasted by guys that caught them on a line because they were so awful to eat. So yeah, I was on a couple of trips where guys didn't want them at the end of the trip and they were dead on the deck. And there was no skill in actually shooting one of those big bluefin. They were just swimming around me. They were just like big dumb cows. If you threw bait in the water, they just continued to feed all around me. I mean, I'll never forget that as a sight, seeing these huge bluefin up to 300 kilos feeding all around me. And they were gliding. They were almost within arm's length at times. Sorry, you know, I could just about touch them. They'd just glide past me. So the skill would have been in landing a big fish. But, you know, I'm a bit of a fan. If I shoot something, I want to be able to eat it. And I ate some bluefin that we caught on fishing trips when I was filming, and I didn't like it. Nobody liked it that I was involved with. So I didn't want to kill one for that reason. But I certainly enjoyed jumping in with them. But probably that's some of the scarier moments in my life, would be jumping in behind those big ships and things 50 miles off the coast out in the Hokitika Trench there. It's pretty spooky stuff, jumping in and doing that. And the first times I did it by myself. I was jumping in there, and it was the unknown. Nobody had really been doing it back then.
Wow. That would have been pretty intense.
Yeah, and when those nets go past you, you're hanging on the side of those nets that go past with 20 ton of hoki in them. There's all sorts of stuff feeding on the back of them and whatnot. It's pretty mind-blowing what you see. I never saw any sharks, but the guys on the boats were obviously catching the odd Mako, which don't worry me too much. But there's other big things out there that I wasn't real keen on seeing. I remember one day I was filming for Graham Sinclair, and they hooked up a bluefin, and I jumped in to film it. And anyway, it dragged the boat away from me. And 50 miles out, there's thousands of seabirds all over the surface, and me bobbing around in amongst them, and the boat's driving away from me, following this bluefin. And I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, trying to keep up with this boat that was backing away from me to try and keep up. And I thought, man, I'm the slowest part of the food chain out here. I need to keep an eye on things. And as I said that, I looked down underneath myself at my legs, and a baby whale came rocketing out of the depths straight at me, about 20 foot long, which to me in those milliseconds was a giant great white coming to eat me. And I almost ran back across the surface to the boat. They eventually remembered, we've got a cameraman in the water. We better back up and go and get him. And I gave them all a bit of a wind up. Actually, it gave me a fright. What could have happened to me if it had been a big white? I would have been in shit street.
Yeah. How do you go in the kitchen, Darren? Are you what's your favorite fish to cook up?
Mate, I am useless in the kitchen. I'm absolutely useless, but I'm fortunate. I'm married to a great chef, my wife, and she does some amazing meals. And to put my finger on one which I like the best is a bit hard, but if there's one I get involved in, it's Tahitian fish salad. I can just eat and eat and eat it. And I don't know if you know it, but you actually squeeze lemon juice all over the fish, but you take it off like 5 minutes after you put it on. You drain it all off, and then you mix with the fish. You mix a bit of oil and a bit of garlic, and then you finely chop up a whole lot of vegetables like capsicums and cucumber and carrots, and you just make this big dish. And it's just so that the fish is still actually pink. It doesn't go white like the traditional coconut cream sort of fish or raw, It's got a slight white to it, but it's more pink. And kingfish or trevally like that, you can't get anything better. But my wife does a beautiful sort of grilled kingfish, pieces of kingfish. I mean, I'm smoking blue mau mau tonight. I just love smoked blue mau mau. Hard to beat that. So yeah, I love all seafood, to be honest.
Yeah. I grew up as a kid spending summer holidays down at Tika, and even just now, the smell of a fire always takes me back there. My grandma used to cook blue mau mau over a fire, over an open fire on a cliff overlooking the Bay of Plenty. It was that's some of my favorite memories growing up. Just absolutely magic. And
aren't we lucky to be able to have memories like that? The sport we're involved in.
Exactly. And the Tahitian fish salad, I do a little variation of that, in with the lemon or lime, and put a little bit of apple cider vinegar.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah, and like you say, don't leave it in too long. Drain it off, and and with all those goodies, I reckon avocado and a bit of cucumber with some herbs and stuff. Magic.
That sounds beautiful. I'll have to try that one.
Yeah, it's recipes on the provider website.
Oh, good.
Yeah, if anyone listening in wants it, yeah, go to www.theprovider.co.nz. You alluded earlier on, Darren, about some of the changes you've seen in our oceans and even in our local waters. It's been a lot of talk about what's the state of the Hauraki Gulf and sea change, the Hauraki Gulf Forum. What's your take on what you've been seeing out there and what's playing out in our fishery?
Okay, well, I've had my eyes underwater for 51 years. This is my 51st year, if you say that, of being a freediver, being a spearo. And I've seen massive changes. And I guess the Hauraki Gulf is always dirty. It's always silty. There's less fish here now. The scallops are just, well, we all know the scallops are in terrible state. But I guess if I can just talk about, say, Whitianga, where I've just been, the Mercs. I dived the Mercs at Easter and I've dived at Queen's birthday weekend. For me, I can't get over how much silt and crap is on the weed and the bottom and things like that and those inner islands, like Great Mercury itself. That really shocked me because I don't dive it much now. So obviously there's a major issue with runoff, from subdivisions and things like that. So I'm not saying this because this is something I've heard some guys say on the internet. This is stuff I've seen over the last 51 years. I've seen some big differences. The only fish I believe that's in better numbers than I've seen is snapper, but kingfish, kahawai, trevally, John Dory, teriki, that sort of stuff. I mean, I can get all that, but when I wasn't such a good spearfisherman, I could get a lot more. There was a lot more there than there is now. And numbers, sizes, everything's got smaller and smaller and smaller. It was interesting when I first started my first spearfishing business. So we're talking over 20 years ago. Monday morning was bent shaft morning. Guys would come in on a Monday morning to buy a new shaft because they'd bent their shaft on the weekend on big kingies. Didn't matter where they'd gone. We very rarely get that now. And the shafts are the same quality as they were back then. So it's not like the shafts are better quality. Guys just don't get those big kingies that we used to see. I mean, you'd see them every weekend you went out. I'd see a 30-kilo kingy somewhere, 30, 35 kilos, Now that's a very rare thing. I mean, the last time I saw one was probably White Island at Christmas. I didn't shoot it. I didn't want to, but yeah, it's this moving baseline. I get customers come in and go, "Oh, it was amazing, Darren. I was out the other day and I was on this point and 4 kingfish swam up to me. God, there was just so many fish there." And, I can think back to that point and, there used to be 100 kingfish would swim up to you on that point. So I've seen some huge changes and I'm not sure what the answer is. I mean, I think we give commercial guys a hard time, but we've also got to be careful we don't clean up our own backyard as well. We got to be a little bit more cautious about what we're doing and understanding what we're doing, because we only ever think about our boat when we go out, what we catch. But I can go out here in the Hauraki Gulf, out from my house in my boat to one of the local islands. And on a big day in the summer, I remember one day I counted 300 boats in the area I was in, recreational boats. Majority of them were line fishing. There wasn't many other divers, but there wasn't one commercial boat. So, I figured, there's going to be more than one fish goes home on each of those boats. In theory, you would think. Collectively, in one small area on one island, there was a shitload of fish being taken out of the ocean by rec guys. So we all want to catch a fish and we all want to catch a fish forever, but we've got to be a little bit cautious. We're not too righteous, and it's my right to catch my limit of snapper and then catch my limit of kingfish and whatnot. It's really not a right. It's, whose right is it? Our right should be to protect the whole lot and make sure forever and a day there's a fish for somebody to go and catch and take home.
Yeah, I saw I saw the YouTube recording of a meeting that was held in Whitianga the other day, and there's an interesting take on our rights, and I thought that was really well put. That with our rights come responsibility. So
correct.
With our rights come responsibility to actually look after it. And at the end
look
of the day,
at our scallop fishery.
Yeah.
It's just
At the end of
shot.
the day, our right isn't to go and catch our limit. I think our right is to, humans are part of nature, and our right is to be part of the food chain and to coexist with nature and to gather our food as close to the source as possible. I think by being fishermen and divers, and you look at what's happening with the world with climate change and everything, the more we can do to get our fish or our food, our protein and our fat from our backyard, the better it is for the planet. But
Sure is.
We want to be very careful about how we look after the ocean in the process, and not only taking enough for a feed and a feed for your family, but also other things like just before I talk to you, I went for a walk down the beach, just take the dogs for a walk so they don't annoy me on this podcast. And
yeah,
and she's been pretty stormy up there, but I just in the short space of time I was there, I picked up a whole bag full of all sorts of rubbish that had washed in on the beach from the storm. Yeah, and we've just got.
I do that every morning at my beach. Every morning I pick up a bag full of rubbish. I did this morning, same as you. It just astounds me. And it's those plastic lollipop sticks.
Yeah, saw quite a few of those. Yeah.
Plastic tops.
Yeah.
And cans. Anything plastic, it's just atrocious. It's just, I still can't get my head around people that just drop their rubbish. I mean, a lot of the rubbish gets washed down off the roads. I believe that, as well as people do drop it in the ocean, but a lot of it comes off the roads. And these people that wind their window down and throw their rubbish out the window or walking down the street, drop it. They need to have a good look at themselves, good think about themselves. It's just atrocious. I can't get my head around that. Cigarette butts. I always pick up cigarette butts off the beach. I hate those things. I hate these people that are smoking and drop their butt wherever it is and stub it out and think it's all good. That ends up going down the drain and into our waterways. It's terrible.
So as recreational fishermen and spearfishermen and divers, we're going to do our bit. I will talk a little bit about commercial fishing. Do you think the quota management system is working?
No, not at all. Yeah. I think there needs to be major changes done there. And I'm going to get a few commercial fishermen's backs up about this, but I have a business where I sell, let's say I sell a pair of gloves, dive gloves. I have to buy a new pair of dive gloves to resell.
Yeah.
To be a fisherman, you can own quota, but you only have to buy it once.
Yeah.
And then the next year you can go and catch it again and again and again and again. Now, it's not their fault. It's just a system we've set up. But I don't understand how that works, because if I could buy a pair of gloves once and sell them forever and a day, only have my running costs, I've got a great business going there, I would have thought. Yeah. But no, I think the quota management system is wrong, because, I mean, I know how the quota management system started as such as you just had to prove you'd caught X amount a year, and that's how much you could start catching, and forever and a day, that's how it started. But no, I think it's really wrong. I think the whole thing needs a relook.
Yeah.
I think
I was watching the news last night, and they're talking about freight issues globally, and the managing director of Sea Lords was on there, and there was footage of how full their cool store is, and there was talking about the need to have more cool store storage around New Zealand, because their cool stores are so chocker with product they've caught, but they can't ship around the world. To me, the answer is pretty bloody clear. Stop bloody fishing until you can sell it.
Yeah,
what are you still fishing for?
Look, I got good mates. I got good customers that are commercial fishermen. They've got to earn $1. I understand all that, but like me selling spear guns, I suppose people go out and shoot and kill fish with them, and sometimes they don't eat them and things like that. So we've all got to make $1, but I guess we've all got to have a think about the future. And I don't know what the answer to it is. Maybe it's a bit like Aussie, where we start buying back some of the quota off some of these guys. We band together as the public, with a bit of government assistance. Buy that quota back, stop it being caught. Is that the answer? I don't know.
Yeah. So we might wrap things up with one very good question. I think you've done so much, Darren, in business and in the spearfishing world. What's left?
Well, what's left? I've got all sorts of aspirations to still dive places. I mean, I still get as big a thrill about it going and catching a fish as what I did when I started. You know, I still love it. Probably more so now because I appreciate eating it more. In business, I want to see my business flourish. I want to see my kids go well with it. I want to see a greener side of my business, which already I'm working on, you know, and there's lots to be learned and done there. I'm trying to stop my suppliers sending me masks and snorkels and plastic bags. I've just achieved that. We buy in the vicinity of 20,000 mask, snorkels and fins a year, maybe a little bit more. I've stopped a plastic bag being wrapped around every one of those. So that's just little old me. Yeah, what else? Enjoy life, you know, sit back and smell the roses. Enjoy what I've achieved. Enjoy my family, enjoy everything, and enjoy some of the memories. You know, I think we forget that we're striving for more, but it's great to sit back and have a beer and chat with somebody like you about the past and about some of the cool things and relive some of those things. Yeah. So there's plenty more to do. There's plenty more exciting things. I can't wait to get out of bed every morning and go and do something, you know, just even that walk down the beach with a dog. I love doing that every morning. Yeah. It's just, yeah. Never give up. That's always been my saying, is never give up.
Exactly. And when you stop and slow down, that's when you fall over, isn't it? Life's all about growing and learning, and there's always
keep yourself fit.
Always something out there. If you get out and about and go for a walk or go for a dive, get out on the boat. There's always something. I just that's. To me, life's about spontaneity and growth and learning and
finding good people that you gel with. You know, there's a lot of fun to be had with that. Went away with a great couple a year and a half ago to the Rugby World Cup, who we have a little bit to do with, but obviously there we had a lot to do with. That was such an awesome trip. You know, and for me, it was away from diving. I mean, he was a diver. That's how I met him, but it was doing something different like that, just going on a rugby trip with no dive gear with me and not going diving. And to me, that's just brilliant. Something different. I loved it. So there's lots more of that to be done.
Awesome. And one thing you still have to do is come out on the boat with me. Show me.
I'd love to.
I'm on a little bit of a learning curve with I'm a little bit of a newbie when it comes to spearfishing. Bought my first gun about 2 years ago, and I've shot a few fish, but trying to get a little bit better at it. So you might have to come out and show me a few things, Darren.
I'd love to. And if there's a little bit of information or something I could give people if they're thinking about getting into it, is don't overcomplicate things. And back to what Pete said in Vanuatu, don't fucking overthink things. Just keep it simple and start off basic. Don't let somebody sell you all the bells and whistles you don't need. Start off simple.
Awesome. Great advice. Thank you for sharing your wisdom today, Darren. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to hooking up on the water.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks for the opportunity and good talking to you. You're a legend.
Thank you. Cheers, Darren.
See you, mate. Okay, bye.